gained media coverage from all across the country. But Simone Biles testified today. And Simone Biles testified to Congress. She said, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame the entire system. I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame the entire system. So it was gripping testimony from all of the women who testified today. And they all expressed regret that this could not have been stopped before Larry Nassar abused dozens of girls and women. Simone Biles and 3 fellow gymnasts offered gut-wrenching testimony to Congress on Wednesday, September 15th, describing abuse they suffered at the hands of Dr. Larry Nassar, who we know was convicted, and charging the FBI, quote unquote, turned a blind eye as Larry Nassar molested female patients. Simone Biles blamed U.S. Gymnastics, the U.S. Olympics Committee, and the FBI for the long-running abuse by Dr. Larry Nassar, who molested girls and women athletes under the guise of medical treatments, At times, the 24-year-old superstar, Simone Biles, at times her voice quivered, and she tied her mental health difficulties at the Tokyo Olympics this summer directly to the trauma of Larry Nassar's abuse. Okay, so we'll talk about this today. We'll talk about the testimony that happened, and then also, as we discussed on our show yesterday, on Tuesday's show, the story broke while we were live on the air Tuesday that Governor Gavin Newsom of California has won his reelection. Won the recall, this idiotic recall race where you had about 46 GOP challengers. At the forefront was unqualified Larry Elder, okay, who's just a total idiot. Larry Elder, radio talk show host for years. And Governor Gavin Newsom crushed the competition, but he was powered by African-American voters and Latino voters. He was powered by African-American voters and Latino voters. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about this. Now, the story broke while we were live on the air after, I think it broke after we stopped broadcasting on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF, and we were in overtime on my network on our social media platforms for the African History Network. The story broke. I got the update from the Washington Post, so we talked about it live on the air here yesterday. So we'll discuss this a little bit more today. And people are looking to see, is this foretelling political futures, political fortunes, or the lack thereof political fortunes for the GOP in the 2022 midterm elections? Okay, because the win by Gavin Newsom to defeat this idiotic recall election that was spurred by Republicans. This was a repudiation of Trump and Trumpism. This was a resounding repudiation of Trump and Trumpism. So many people are asking, how will this impact the 2022 midterm elections, when usually there's a dip in voter turnout, number one, and there's usually definitely a dip in voter turnout for Democrats, and also, historically speaking, the party that is in the White House usually loses seats in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate in midterm elections. However, with this midterm elections, this is crucial. We can't lose seats in the House or the Senate. We actually need to gain seats in the House and the Senate, and you need to get to hopefully a 60 vote majority, 60-seat majority in the Senate. If you can't get to 60, at least get to 55, 56, so that then you can break the filibuster and change the filibuster rules in the Senate. So we'll discuss that also. Now, September 15th is World Afro Day. World Afro Day. And I've been seeing posts today about World Afro Day. This is the 5th annual World Afro Day. And we did a post shortly before the show came on today, dealing with World Afro Day. Be proud of your hair while World Afro Day is celebrated. Be proud of your hair while World Afro Day is celebrated. Okay. And so we'll discuss this as well. And this is celebrated by African-American men and women, and celebrating natural hair, celebrating afros on both African-American men and women. Okay. So we'll discuss some about World Afro Day and recent slights and attacks on natural hair when it comes to people of African descent. Then today, September 15th, this is the 58th anniversary of the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing, where 4 little girls were killed in Birmingham, Alabama. Okay. And many of us have seen the story. Some of us saw the film from Spike Lee, 4 Little Girls. Okay. And there's a piece from there's a piece from what is that? History.com. Today I read the updates each morning from History.com, this day in history. And there's also an article from I forgot which publication that is. There's an article from ABC channel, ABC 33, I think it is, ABC affiliate. The 5th little girl recalls 16th Street Baptist Church bombing 58 years ago. Okay, so we'll discuss this as well a little bit in our history segment, dealing with the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Took place September 15th, 1963. Now, this was about 3 weeks after the March on Washington, and which took place August 28th, 1963. There were so many bombings that happened in Birmingham, Alabama, that African Americans called Birmingham Bombingham. There were so many bombings. And we know that in also in 1956, during the Montgomery bus boycott, 1956, we know that Dr. King's house was firebombed twice in 1956, late January 56, and then also September 56. So it wasn't just in Birmingham that they were doing bombings, but Birmingham was known for bombings that white domestic terrorists were doing to African Americans. Addie Mae Collins was 14 years old, Cynthia Wesley, 14, Carol Robertson, 14, and Carol Denise McNair was 11. These were the 4 African American girls killed in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Okay, so we'll talk about that, and then we'll give a brief update on the R. Kelly trial. Yesterday, I think yesterday was day 15. We didn't talk about it yesterday. I had information prepared for yesterday, but we ran out of time and we didn't get to it. Yesterday, prosecutors played for the jury tapes of R. Kelly allegedly threatening accusers. So we'll talk about this also. Madam Noor has a piece on this. USA Today and what is this? ABC News have pieces on this from the September 14th, but Madam Noor has one from September 15th that we'll talk about. All right, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history, politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Be sure to register for the new 10-week online course that I teach on Saturdays 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. We go through and analyze a little more than 100-year period of history to look and see what happened to us after slavery ended. We look at the Reconstruction era, Jim Crow, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, Great Migration. And we do the classes 12 noon to 2 p.m. We do the classes live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Click on register here, and you can start watching class number 1 as soon as you enroll. The class is on sale for limited time only, $70, regularly $130. We're coming up on a break here. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Black on Purpose Television Network. Yes, Black on Purpose Television Network. All black, all positive, all the time. The largest black-owned streaming television network in the world. Bringing our people together worldwide. Controlling our messages, our stories, our way. Black TV the way it should be. Black music, Black history, and more. 30-plus channels, thousands of shows. Black on Purpose Television Network. Subscribe now.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting, LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP, and cellular phone services. Home users, don't miss our current in-stock Chromebook inventory. Please visit us at jcwcc.com or call 215-879-6701.
The African History Network show, we deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism means. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. 910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. All right, the screening of the documentary Hapi is which deals with economic empowerment and African civilizations. That documentary screening is coming up Sunday, September 26th, 3 p.m. at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. I will be there. I am moderating the panel discussion. Professor James Small will be there also. He is in the film. The film features Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor James Small, Dr. Julian Malveaux, Dr. Zahi Hawass, Jabari Osazi, and others. This Sunday on our show, we're going to have Dr. Leonard Jeffries and Professor James Small back on our show this Sunday, the African History Network show, to talk about the topic and talk about the screening also. Okay, so visit the website hapifilm.com. hapifilm.com for more information, and I'll be there as well. You can purchase tickets from hapifilm.com. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about a little bit the testimony that took place today in the U.S. Senate. Testimony that took place today in the U.S. Senate from Simone Biles and 3 of her fellow gymnasts regarding the abuse that they suffered from Dr. Larry Nassar. Okay. And, it was gut-wrenching testimony, is emotional testimony. And they talked about the abuse, but they also talked about the fact that in general, nobody believed them, which was another thing. In general, nobody believed them. Okay. So I want to go to this clip here. This is from NBC Nightly News, and it deals with what happened today. And we know that Simone Biles said, "I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system." Let's go to clip number 1, Shakita, for NBC Nightly News. Okay, take it off mute.
Blame Larry Nassar. And
Okay.
I also blame
Can you start it from the beginning?
an entire system that enabled and to be clear, I blame Larry Nassar. And I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse.
Simone Biles and her 3 fellow gymnasts told the Senate Judiciary Committee in words searing and emotional how adults failed them, ignoring for more than a year their claims of sexual abuse by Team USA doctor Larry Nassar.
I don't want another young gymnast, Olympic athlete, or any individual to experience the horror that I and hundreds of others have endured before, during, and continuing to this day in the wake of the Larry Nassar abuse.
The women particularly blamed the FBI. Michaela Maroney testified in 2015 she told an agent what Nassar did to her in excruciating detail before she told her mother.
I began crying at the memory over the phone, and there was just dead silence. I was so shocked at the agent's silence and disregard for my trauma. After that minute of silence, he asked, "Is that all?"
The FBI didn't officially open an investigation until nearly a year after it first learned of the allegation.
The FBI made me feel like my abuse didn't count and it wasn't a big deal.
Allie Raisman described how the Bureau's inaction haunts her. It's estimated Nassar abused at least 70 gymnasts after the FBI was first told.
It was like serving innocent children up to a pedophile on a silver platter.
I'm deeply and profoundly sorry.
FBI Director Christopher Wray, who did not lead the Bureau at the time, told the committee that the 2 agents who lied about their actions are no longer with the Bureau. One took retirement, the other was fired. The added reforms are already underway.
We want to take the pain that occurred here and use it as a catalyst to teach people the importance of doing the work in the right way.
But Maggie Nichols and her fellow gymnasts want more. Maggie, what is justice?
I think justice is holding those accountable who failed us continuously and continue to fail us, and those who didn't protect us throughout our gymnastics career and throughout our childhood.
Until someone can answer the question Simone Biles asked.
How much is a little girl worth?
and this was gut-wrenching to watch. These women are asking for accountability, and so is there any chance any of the FBI agents involved could face charges for making false statements to investigators?
There is less. They're lying to the FBI as a crime, but so far the Justice Department has declined to prosecute the 2 former agents involved. Officials from the Justice Department were invited to today's hearing but declined to attend, and the gymnasts say that makes them feel as if the DOJ doesn't care.
Okay. All right. That's from NBC Nightly News from Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. So if we look at this piece here, okay, hold on. The screen is frozen. If we look at this piece here from, okay, that's from NBC Nightly News, Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. If we go back and look at this piece here from the Washington Post, let's see, which one is this one here? I want to look at the one from, okay, piece from the Washington Post here. Simone Biles to Congress, I blame Larry Nassar and also blame an entire system. Now, the piece goes on to say that Biles, let's see, Biles blamed USA Gymnastics, the U.S. Olympics Committee, and the FBI for long-running abuse by Dr. Larry Nassar, who molested girl and women athletes under the guise of medical treatments. At times, 24-year-old Simone Biles, her voice quivered as she tied her mental health difficulties at the Tokyo Olympics this summer directly to the trauma of Larry Nassar's abuse. She said, I don't want another young gymnast, Olympic athlete, or any individual to experience the horror that I and hundreds of others have endured before, during, and continuing to this day in the wake of the Larry Nassar abuse, end quote. Now, Simone Biles told members of the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee as she fought back tears, quote, to be clear, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse. Okay, so now Biles, the world's most accomplished gymnast, won a bronze medal in balance beam at the Olympics this summer, but withdrew from most of the competition, citing mental duress. Now, talking about her training for and participation in the Tokyo Games, she said, the scars of this horrific abuse continue to live with all of us. The scars of this horrific abuse continue to live with all of us. Now, Simone Biles said she could think of no place more uncomfortable for her to be than before lawmakers and television cameras in the hearing room, testifying publicly about the abuse. And we're talking about sexual abuse. She said she came to the U.S. Senate so that no little girl must endure, what she and her fellow gymnasts did. She said, we have been failed and we deserve answers. It truly feels like the FBI turned a blind eye to us to protect the Olympic and gymnast organizations. Okay, now more than a year after the allegations against Dr. Larry Nassar were first brought to the FBI in 2015, he was arrested and charged by state officials. In the interim, Nassar is estimated to have abused at least 70 more athletes, according to a devastating report issued in July of 2021 by Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz. Dr. Larry Nassar's victims say the figure is even higher at 120 victims. Now, Nassar, who treated athletes for both USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University, and people know Detroit is in Michigan State. I know a lot of people that went to Michigan State University. I had an ex-girlfriend that graduated from Michigan State University. So when this was exposed here, this hit throughout Michigan, especially here in Detroit, very hard. Larry Nassar, who treated athletes for both USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University, is now serving the equivalent of a life term in federal prison. Okay, read the rest of this piece here from the Washington Post. Simone Biles to Congress, I blame Larry Nassar. I also blame the system. Okay, I also blame an entire system. Okay, so we have this piece here from Washington Post. Also, there's a good article as well from NBC News. This one here from NBC News. We have been failed. Simone Biles breaks down in tears recounting Nassar's sexual abuse. Okay, this other piece from NBC News. Let's see here. We have been failed. Let me pull this one up. We have been failed. Simone Biles breaks down in tears recounting Nassar's sexual abuse. Biles and fellow gymnasts Michaela Maroney, Ali Raceman, and Maggie Nichols testified about their abuse in graphic detail at a hearing on the FBI's mishandling of the Larry Nassar case. Okay, we're going to shift gears here. You'll hear more about that story most likely. On yesterday's show, the story broke about the California recall election, the idiotic California recall election, and that Governor Gavin Newsom, Democrat, has staved off a recall election spurred by Republicans and those who were upset about COVID restrictions and trying to save people's lives from COVID and different things like this. There were about 46 Republican challengers. And the front runner was Larry Elder, okay? Black conservative talk show host Larry Elder, who has some very, very backward views on many issues, women's rights and a whole host of issues, reparations and fighting coronavirus, all types of things. Well, Gavin, thegrill.com has a piece on this, and also there's a piece from there's a story on the Black News Channel we're going to go to here in just a minute. But if you look at the piece here from the Griot, and yesterday we talked about the story from the Washington Post. And I want to see if we can find that piece from the Washington Post again. But anyway, this one here from the Griot. California Governor Gavin Newsom beats back GOP-led recall. California Governor Gavin Newsom beats back GOP-led recall. And let's see here. So on Tuesday, Gavin Newsom emphatically defeated a recall aimed at kicking him out of office early, a contest the Democrat framed as part of a national battle for his party's value in the face of the coronavirus pandemic and continued threats from Trumpism. Now, Gavin Newsom bolted to a quick victory boosted by healthy turnout in the overwhelmingly Democratic state of California. He cast it as a win for his handling of the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, and liberal issues, and it ensures that the nation's most populous state will remain Democratic control as a laboratory for progressive politics. Governor Gavin Newsom said, no is not the only thing that was expressed tonight. No is not the only thing that was expressed tonight. I want to focus on what we said yes to as a state. I want to focus on what we said yes to as a state. We said yes to science. We said yes to vaccines. We said yes to ending the pandemic. Okay, we said yes to science. We said yes to vaccines. We said yes to ending the pandemic. I want to go to this clip here from This is from the Black News Channel. They did a piece on this today, and Governor Gavin Newsom's recall election win was powered by the Latino community and the African American community. California Governor Gavin Newsom was successful in the recall election, which aimed to remove him from office after Republicans expressed displeasure with his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The African American community and the Latino communities were heavily involved in Governor Gavin Newsom keeping his job. Okay. Let's go to this clip here. This is from Start Your Day with Shan Reed and Mike Hill. You're going to hear BNC correspondent Walter Morris talk with voters in Los Angeles about why it was so important for them to turn out. Let's go to this clip, Shakita.
BNC's Walter Morris talked with voters in Los Angeles about why it was so important for them to turn out last night.
Down to the wire, California voters casting their ballots in a historic election. For the second time in state history, voters deciding whether they want to recall their governor.
We sort of pushed everything into gear with knocking on doors and phone banking and text banking and leaving door knockers. 44% of the early returns that we saw were coming from Black voters. We were able to actually make a 10-point swing in what we're now seeing tonight. So we know that the work that we were doing on the front end has paid dividends.
Well before this election night watch party hosted by Afro, the African American Voter Registration, Education, and Participation Project, Tuesday, voters packing the polls. Long lines seen at voting centers across the state.
It's my civic duty, and it's an honor to be able to participate.
Vanessa Chester says she didn't have a choice, hand-delivering her ballot to this center in Los Angeles to make sure her vote could be counted as soon as possible.
As a Black woman, as the daughter of immigrants, as the first person born in America, there's a lot that I know my parents sacrificed to get me here, and gonna do everything I can to make sure that it wasn't in vain.
For many Black voters, the recall election is about more than who was on the ballot, but bread and butter issues that are big in the blue state, like women's rights, criminal justice reform, climate change, and the pandemic. Many telling BNC voting is a right they take seriously.
Because so many people have given so much so that we could have the right to do that, it's kind of our obligation to do it.
And as the country looks ahead to the next election cycle, Chester has this message for other Black and brown voters.
We are a powerful group with a lot to say and a ton to give to this country, which we've already done and consistently do over time. And I think that this is a new way for us to show up and show what we have to say and what we have to contribute. And it's so easy to just do it. Vote. Vote, vote.
And now that the recall is over, get ready. Reps for the Newsom campaign tell me they believe this is just a preview of what's to come in the midterms. Reporting in Los Angeles, I'm Walter Morris for BN.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Shakita. Okay, so we have the recall election here. And we have, one of the reasons why it was so important for people to come out and vote and to crush these Republicans is you're dealing with COVID restrictions put in place to save people's lives. Many of them don't want that. Many of them don't want mask mandates, and et cetera. So I guess they just want coronavirus to just go through and just kill people at will. But also, Larry Elder said that if he becomes governor, and if something happens to Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, who I think is 85 years old, if she becomes incapacitated or has to resign because of health issues or what have you, he said he would replace her with a Republican. He said he would not hesitate to replace her with a Republican. So what this means is that the Senate was flipped 51 Republicans, 49 Democrats, which means that Democrats will lose control of the Senate. Mitch McConnell will become Senate Majority Leader. Chuck Schumer will become Senate Minority Leader. Republicans will control the Senate again. They will control which bills come to the floor of Senate debate. They'll be able to block any of President Joe Biden's U.S. Supreme Court nominations or federal judge nominations, like they did with President Barack Obama. There were 103 federal judge nominations from President Barack Obama that Mitch McConnell blocked in the Senate when Republicans took back control of the Senate in 2014. And this set it up for Donald Trump to get 225 federal judges confirmed in the Senate. And we're still dealing with the consequences of that. Those are lifetime appointments. He nominated some of the most incompetent, unqualified federal judges, and the American Bar Association came out against some of those nominations and said that these people are totally unqualified to have a lifetime appointment and sit on the federal bench. Also, judges, also governors can appoint judges, but also governors do things like stays of execution. So there's a lot of power that the governor has, and the governor signs bills that come from the state legislature. Well, state legislature in California is dominated by Democrats. The governor signs bills, the governor can veto bills, but the governor also does executive orders. So there's a lot of power that governors have, and they said, we don't want any of these idiots, these Republican challengers, to be governor of California. This is too dangerous, especially Larry Elder, especially an idiot like Larry Elder. This is too dangerous. This is too serious. So some people say, well, what does California have to do with me in Detroit? What does California have to do with me in Indiana? You do realize that a governor, if something happens to, just like right now, there's 7 Democratic U.S. senators that are in states that have Republican governors. You do realize that if something happens to one of them, that Republican governor can put a Republican in their seat, which really overrules the 2022 election results when it came to the Senate and who people wanted in the Senate, who people wanted control in the Senate. This is how crucial the position of a governor is. So that when people think, oh, well, that's that crazy governor in that state of Texas, they don't have nothing to do with Michigan. Yes, it does. Or that's that crazy governor in Florida. They don't have nothing to do with Michigan. Yes, it does. All right. So I want to go to this next story here. World Afro Day. World Afro Day is September 15th. I saw some posts on social media about this. There was a good article from Yahoo News that talks about World Afro Day. And it deals with be proud of your hair. Be proud of your hair while World Afro Day is being celebrated. Be proud of your hair while World Afro Day is being celebrated. And we hear stories periodically about African Americans who are face microaggressions. They are attacked. They face discrimination when it comes to jobs, etc., based upon their hair. If we look at this article here from Yahoo News dealing with Afro World Day 2021, the 5th anniversary of Afro World Day. And let me pull this up here. So it talks about a British Olympic swimmer has hailed Afro World Day as a great opportunity for Black boys and girls to be proud of their hair. Alice Deering, who became the first Black female swimmer to represent Team GB at Great Britain at the Tokyo Olympics, is a special guest at this year's event, sharing her experiences of her Afro hair with school children worldwide, sharing her experiences of her Afro hair with school children worldwide. Now, the 24-year-old told Yahoo News UK, she said, I love wearing my natural hair out because it's so beautiful and liberating. I love wearing my natural hair out because it's so beautiful and liberating. She said, "This is me. This is who I am, and I'm really proud of it. I love seeing other women wear their natural hair out because it always looks so good." Okay. I love seeing other women wear their natural hair out because it always looks so good. And here's a picture here of now Afro World Day was founded by Michelle DeLeon. Okay. Here she's pictured with her daughter Estelle at the event for Afro World Day in 2017. Okay, so I went to their website today also for Afro World Day. We'll pull that up here in just a minute. The website for Afro World Day, and they have all types of information there supporting and celebrating afros and natural hair, etc. Now, this year marks the fifth Afro World Day since it was launched in 2017. World Afro Day founder Michelle DeLeon said she was excited in that things have been busy in the lead up to this year's event, okay, which has been endorsed by the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and received a Global Excellence Award. Now, World Afro Day is an annual event held on September 15th that encourages people to celebrate their afros and inform others of the social changes caused by having natural afro hair, and inform others about the social changes caused by having natural afro hair. Michelle DeLeon, the founder, who lives in London, set up World Afro Day after hearing her daughter singing about her natural hair. But this event's specific date has historical significance. On September 15th, 2016, the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal upheld the dismissal of employee Chastity Jones, who lost her job because of her dreadlocks. Okay. On September 15th, 2016, the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal upheld the dismissal of employee Chastity Jones, who lost her job because of her dreadlocks. The court ruled that while hairstyles can be, quote unquote, culturally associated with race, end quote, culturally associated with race, they are not immutable physical characteristics. In other words, the ruling says that white people cannot change their race, they can change their hairstyle, which means it is not discriminatory to deny someone a job based on a characteristic they can alter, which means it is not discriminatory to deny someone a job based on a characteristic they can alter. All right. If we look at this piece here from Yahoo News that talks about World Afro Day, and some of the history behind it, it talks about this court case. Now, once again, politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, and this deals with politics, and there's also a politics behind hair. There's also a politics behind hair and hairstyle. On September 15, 2016, the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal upheld the dismissal of employee Chastity Jones, who lost her job because of her dreadlocks. Now, Michelle DeLeon, let's see here. Michelle DeLeon said it was very critical for me to have a day that mattered. That 15th day of September showed that there are laws against expressing Afro hair in the workplace. That's crazy in the 21st century. I wanted people to understand that this was a real problem that we needed to change. This was a real problem that we needed to change. There was a big hair assembly on the day involving a live stream of 175,000 young people from 237 schools. Okay, read the rest of this from Yahoo News. Hey, we're going to squeeze in clip number 3 about the fifth little girl dealing with the 4 little girls. Let's go to this clip, Shakita. Clip number 3.
58 years ago today, 4 Birmingham girls were murdered during the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Each year, of course, the church holds a program to commemorate that day. And people from across the country came once again to pay their respects. ABC 3340's Ashley Gooden attended this morning's service and joins us now live from 16th Street Baptist Church. Ensley?
When those 4 girls died, it changed lives, laws, and gained worldwide attention. The people who gathered here today have a goal: keep telling the story so no one forgets what happened.
You're supposed to feel safe in church, but I remember on that day we wasn't safe at all.
September 15th, 1963 is a day Sarah Collins Rudolph won't ever forget.
I never could understand why a person would put a bomb in a church and kill innocent girls. That's one thing I just can't understand.
She was there that day. She survived, but she lost her sister, Addie Mae Collins, and 3 friends, Denise McNair, Carol Robertson, and Cynthia Wesley.
I lost my eye, in the bombing, my right eye. And I had to really go through life from a child until the age I am now, just seeing out of one eye. When I look in the mirror, I see the scars on my face and see the prosthetic. So that just makes me remember what happened here at this church 58 years ago.
Every day she thinks about it. And every year on this day, people from across the country come to commemorate it. Like Jared Alcantara came and brought his PhD student.
Because they're teaching the next generation of pastors, preachers, leaders, it was really important to move it from off of the textbook and into real stories, real people, real lives, and also to not just think about it, but to feel it, to see it, to be moved by it. Because there's things that you see that you won't unsee as a result of being here.
An important day in history, and one Sarah Collins Rudolph hopes others will never forget.
These young girls was killed in this church, and this was something that shouldn't never have happened.
Okay.
Sarah Collins.
Okay. All right. Sarah Collins Rudolph, and that was dealing with the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Rest in peace, Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Carol Denise McNair. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register for my 10-week online course. We teach on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Also, we'll have information there about where I'll be this weekend, Saturday, September 18th. Harris Gentry Park, 2nd Annual African Cultural Festival. And then also September 26th, 3 p.m., Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, Sunday, for the screening and panel discussion of the film Hot P, dealing with economic empowerment and African civilization. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're going to keep broadcasting for a few more minutes. Right now, it's Correct Wrong Behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN Show, paypal.me /the AHN Show as well. We're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. All right. Let's see. Let's continue here. Now, we're going to go to the last story here dealing with R. Kelly. We'll come back to 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in just a second. There's a good article from history.com dealing with this day in history. And it talks about the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. So we'll continue that in just a minute here and go to a recap of what happened with the R. Kelly trial today. Very quickly, I just want to do a quick recap of what we covered in class number 1 of from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Okay, so we dealt with, and this was on Saturday, September 11th. As soon as you registered, you can watch the full class. We did 2 hours. Okay, here's just a brief recap of what we talked about. We dealt with history leading up to the Civil War taking place. Okay, we dealt with history leading up to the Civil War taking place. What caused the Civil War to happen? So we talked about the Louisiana Purchase of 1803, and the U.S. gets 828,000 square miles of land for less than 3 cents an acre, and it doubles the territory of the U.S. At the time. This gives more land for states to have slaves and grow crops on, and this increases the need for African slaves also. The land had to be sold because France was fighting the Haitian Revolution. They're fighting against the Haitians during the Haitian Revolution, and they're trying to raise money. So we also talked about the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848, the Mexican-American War, and Texas becoming a state in the Union in 1845, coming into the Union as a slaveholding state. We talked about as a result of the Mexican-American War. As a result of that, you have what's known as the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which ends the Mexican-American War. And the U.S. is going to get the territory that makes up 6 states: California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. The U.S. is going to get all this land because of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. And this is new land to grow crops on, and some of the land they're going to have slaves in as well. Because of the Mexican-American War and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, this leads to what's known as the Compromise of 1850. The Compromise of 1850 consists of 5 bills, and a lot of that has to do with determining whether they're going to have slavery in these new territories or not. We know California comes into the Union as a free state, even though they try to ban all African Americans, but it comes into the Union as a free state. But in the Compromise of 1850, you have the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. And the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 intensifies the abolitionist movement, and it causes more runaway slaves to run away into Canada, the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. And we see this depicted in the film Harriet, okay, the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. So we talked about that. We also talked about the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. And the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 left it up to people living in those territories to determine whether or not they would have slavery, as opposed to slavery being dictated by the federal government. Okay, and this infuriated a lot of abolitionists. And the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 leads to what's known as Bleeding Kansas. Bleeding Kansas was armed conflict in 1854 and 1855 between pro-slavery groups and anti-slavery groups in Kansas. Okay, and they're fighting and killing each other. This is what's known as Bleeding Kansas. So this is just a few of the things we talked about in class number 1. And we are looking at some significant events that led up to the Civil War taking place starting April 12, 1861. So in class number 2, we'll continue looking at some of those events, and then we'll deal with the Civil War, and we'll talk about specifically the last year of the Civil War, 1865, and Special Field Order number 15, also known as 40 Acres and a Mule, the assassination of Lincoln, the ending of the Civil War, April 9th, 1865, when General Robert E. Lee surrenders to General Ulysses S. Grant, who would later become President Ulysses S. Grant. We also talk about Juneteenth, June 19th, 1865, which is right after the Civil War ends, and Major General Gordon Granger delivers General Order number 3 to enslave Africans there in Texas. And then we also talk about the 13th Amendment, ratified December 6, 1865 by Georgia, which legally ends slavery, legally ends chattel slavery. All right, so this is a 10-week online course. We go through and analyze a little more than a 100-year period of history. We go through Civil War, Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, Jim Crow era. We look at the laws and policies put in place to oppress African Americans physically as well as politically, and what happened to us after slavery ended to put us in the predicament we're in right now. We'll look at World War I, World War II, some of the massacres that take place. We'll look at the Tulsa Race Massacre, 1921, Ocoee Massacre, 1920 in Florida, Rosewood, January 1923 in Rosewood, Florida. We'll look at World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. Okay, so the class is discounted right now, $70 for a limited time only, directly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime, even after the 10-week class is over with. You still have access. You can watch the full course. When you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on register here. It takes you to the next page, and just click on enroll on the next page. Okay, click right here on enroll, and as soon as you enroll, you can start watching the content. All right, and you can ask questions in class. We have a live text chat. You can see me, I can't see you, and you can ask questions also. Okay, very quickly here, I want to go back to 16th Street Baptist Church, and history.com in their This Day in History had an article dealing with this. 4 black girls killed in Birmingham church bombing. 4 black girls killed in Birmingham church bombing. And it talks about what happened September 15th, 1963. Now, once again, this is about 3 weeks after the March on Washington. Okay, about 3 weeks after the March on Washington. On September 15th, 1963, let's pull this up here. On September 15th, 1963, a bomb explodes during Sunday morning services in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, killing 4 young girls: Addie Mae Collins, who was 14, Cynthia Wesley, 14, Carol Robertson, 14, and Carol Denise McNair, who was 11. With its large African-American congregation, the 16th Street Baptist Church served as a meeting place for civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., who once called Birmingham a symbol of hardcore resistance to integration, a symbol of hardcore resistance to integration. And we know it's going to be Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth who calls Dr. King in 63 to come and help African Americans in Birmingham, Alabama, in what's known as the Birmingham Campaign to break the back of segregation in Alabama. Okay, so contrary to popular belief in how a lot of the history is mistold, Dr. King wasn't leading everything in the civil rights movement. There were people in their own cities working to end segregation, fight for equal rights, all that in their own communities. Okay, either with or without the help of Dr. King. And Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth calls Dr. King, and they interview Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth for Eyes on the Prize. And he talked about how he told Dr. King, if you help us in Birmingham, we can guarantee you a victory. Okay, because there was a dispute over, and there was some people were losing faith in nonviolent direct resistance. Okay, The Albany campaign in Albany, Georgia was a failure. And Dr. King was looking for a win to prove that nonviolent direct resistance, along with economic boycotts and things like this, because they had that in Birmingham also, along with the mass protests, economic boycotts, etc., that it was still an effective tool. All right. And Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth tells him, if you come to Birmingham, I can guarantee you a win. And this is what happens. Okay, so let's look at this here. Okay, let's continue. So Dr. King called Birmingham a symbol of hardcore resistance to integration. Alabama's governor George Wallace, famous segregationist George Wallace, made preserving racial segregation one of the central goals of his administration, and Birmingham had one of the most violent and lawless chapters of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, the church bombing was the third in Birmingham in 11 days. The church bombing on September 15th, 1963, was the third in Birmingham in 11 days after a federal order came down to integrate Alabama's school system. 15 sticks of dynamite were planted in the church basement underneath what turned out to be the girls' restroom. Now, the bomb detonated at 10:19 a.m. Oops, okay, let me bring this back up here. Okay, the bomb detonated at 10:19 a.m., killing Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and Addie Mae Collins, all 14 years old, and 11-year-old Denise McNair. Immediately after the blast, church members wandered, dazed and bloodied, covered with white powder and broken stained glass, before starting to dig in the rubble to search for survivors. More than 20 other members of the congregation were injured in the blast. Now, when thousands of African protesters assembled at the crime scene, Governor George Wallace sent hundreds of police and state troopers to the area to break up the crowd. 2 African-American men were killed that night, one by police, another by white supremacist, domestic terrorist, racist thugs. Meanwhile, public outrage over the bombing continued to grow, drawing international attention to Birmingham, Alabama. At a funeral for 3 of the girls, one's family preferred a separate private service. Dr. King addressed more than 8,000 mourners. A well-known Klans member, Robert Chambliss, was charged with the murder and with buying 122 sticks of dynamite. Not sure what he was going to do with that. Did they have a big sale? They have a big going out of business sale? All this dynamite has to go. We don't know what to do with all this dynamite. Did they have a big sale? What was it? You know, what's it called? A dynamite sale? It was 100. He was charged with buying 122 sticks of dynamite. In October 1963, Robert Chambliss was cleared of the murder charge and received a 6-month jail sentence and a $100 fine for the dynamite. Although a subsequent FBI investigation identified 3 other men, Bobby Frank Cherry, Herman Cash, and Thomas E. Blanton Jr., as having helped Robert Chambliss commit the crime, it was later revealed that FBI Chairman J. Edgar Hoover blocked the prosecution and shut down the investigation without filing charges in 1968. After Alabama Attorney General Bill Baxley reopened the case, Robert Chambliss was convicted in 1977 and sentenced to life in prison. Gotta go. Okay, he sentenced to life in prison 9 years after he murdered these 4 little girls. Now, efforts to prosecute the other 3 men believed responsible for the bombing continued for decades. Though Cash died in 1994, okay, Herman Cash, though Cash died in 1994, Cherry and Blanton were arrested and charged with 4 counts of murder in the year 2000. Blanton was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Cherry's trial was delayed after judges ruled he was mentally incompetent to stand trial. I guess just white supremacy just took his mind or something. Because just, white supremacy, he's just so crazy white supremacy, can't stand trial. See, my thing is don't do the crime if you can't do the time. All right. I don't personally, you too crazy, all this stuff. I don't want to hear that. I don't think you were crazy. I think you knew what you were doing when you were involved in this. I don't want to hear all that stuff. The decision was later reversed on May 22nd, 2002. Cherry was convicted and sentenced to life, bringing a long-awaited victory to the friends and families of the 4 victims. Okay. Let me pull this up here. It was okay. So this talks about the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing, September 15th, 1963. And let me pull something up here because it was the senator who became senator from Alabama who prosecuted him. Let me pull this up here. This second time service. It was the Senate when he was a U.S. attorney. Talked to him on Roland Martin the Filter. He lost his re-election campaign. And let me see here. He lost his re-election campaign. Let me pull this up. Doug Jones. Senator Doug Jones of Alabama was the one who prosecuted, did the prosecution in 2002 of Frank Cherry. Let me pull up some information on that. Hold on just a second here. Computer's running a little slowly. Okay, there's a piece here from history.com that deals with this for the sake of, that's the first one that comes up here. Okay, how Doug Jones brought KKK church bombers to justice. August 31st, 2018, how Doug Jones brought KKK church bombers to justice. Jones helped convict 2 men nearly 40 years after their crimes. In the special election on December 12, 2017, Alabama chose Democrat Doug Jones over Republican and alleged sexual predator Roy Moore. Now, that wasn't a hard decision. Roy Moore. He had like little girls, Roy Moore. Jones will now head to the U.S. Senate, bringing to a close an election that drew national and international attention, unusual for a state election, but even more for Alabama. Much of the media attention on Jones, the first Democrat elected in the state in a quarter century, focused on his role in prosecuting Ku Klux Klan members who planted a bomb that killed 4 girls at a black church. The terrorist attack occurred on September 15, 1963. Okay. And here's a picture of the 4 little girls also. Okay. Now, let's see here. Where is that? Let me go back to this article. Okay. According to Glenn D. Brasher, a history professor at the University of Alabama. The FBI determined that 4 KKK members had planted the bomb. FBI agents led by FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover knew the attackers' names and had made secret recordings to prove it. However, the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover, quote, the FBI under Hoover sealed those files away because J. Edgar was not exactly a proponent of the civil rights movement, end quote. Brasher says. That's an understatement. By doing this, Hoover ensured that a court could not use them as evidence to prosecute the attackers, making it more difficult to convict. All right. Now, Chambliss was prosecuted. So for 14 years after the bombing, none of the men were prosecuted for their crime. The first one to be arrested and convicted was Robert Edward Chambliss, Robert E. Chambliss, in 1977, whose trial a young Doug Jones attended when he was in law school. Now, Robert Chambliss was, quote, prosecuted largely on circumstantial evidence, Brasher says. The prosecution did not have access to all of the information that the FBI had collected immediately after the attack in the 1960s. Nevertheless, the overwhelming circumstantial evidence led to a conviction. Although Doug Jones was only a boy himself when the bombing happened, the government did not release the FBI's evidence against these men for decades. By the time the government finally declassified the files, Doug Jones had been appointed as U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama by President Bill Clinton and was able to prosecute the case. Because presidents also appoint U.S. attorneys as well. There are 99 U.S. attorneys. Presidents also appoint U.S. attorneys. Now, this was in the late 1990s, and one of the attackers, Herman Frank Cash, had already died. But the two men who were still alive, and Doug Jones, but two of the men were still alive, and Doug Jones realized that he had the chance to continue the work of that trial from over 20 years ago. Using the newly revealed evidence, U.S. Attorney Doug Jones successfully prosecuted two more of the attackers that the FBI had identified. Thomas Edwin Blanton Jr., convicted in 2001, and Bobby Frank Cherry, convicted in 2002. According to Sharon A. Green, a professor of history at the University of Alabama, Doug Jones, U.S. Attorney Doug Jones' victory is particularly significant given the state's racial politics. Doug Jones, a man who made his name prosecuting the KKK, beat an opponent who, when asked when America was last great, replied, "I think it was great at the time when families were united, even though we had slavery." He's talking about Roy Jones. That's what Roy Jones said. Now, people knew how enormous the results, the outcomes of yesterday's election would be for Alabama. This is back in August 2018. Green says, you had folks who probably wanted to vote for a Republican, but instead voted for someone who was better aligned with some of their values. Okay, so read this piece here from history.com. The other articles is one from the Washington Post that talks about Doug Jones prosecuting the Ku Klux Klan, the two men with the KKK involved in the 16th Street Baptist church bombing. Read this article, How Doug Jones Brought KKK Church Bombers to Justice, from history.com. All right. Okay. Now, I want to squeeze this in here. We'll talk about this some more tomorrow. This is dealing with update in the R. Kelly trial. And let's see here. There's some information dealing with COVID and children. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Also, Associated Press has this piece, COVID-19 cases climbing, wiping out months of progress. We'll talk about this on tomorrow's show. So there was a, we didn't talk about R. Kelly yesterday. And there was a couple stories dealing with, there were a couple of stories, one I saw from USA Today and another one from ABC News. Prosecutors say tapes capture R. Kelly threatening accusers. Okay. Prosecutors say tapes capture R. Kelly threatening accusers. So, so this was one piece from September 14th from USA Today. I want to look at this article here from, this is from Yahoo News. This is from September 15th. This talks about what happened in trial. And let's pull this up here. Okay. All right. So Yahoo News picked this up from Madam Noor. Let's look at this one. Okay. If you lie to me, I'm going to F you up. If you lie to me, I'm going to F you up. Prosecutors play shocking audio of R. Kelly threatening victims. Prosecutors play shocking audio of R. Kelly threatening victims. So on September 14th, the courtroom was rocked again by yet another startling accusation against R&B icon R. Kelly, this time in the form of a shocking audio clip. The presiding judge gave prosecutors the green light to play audio recordings that show the star's violent nature and threats. According to the Daily Mail, in one clip, R. Kelly could be heard yelling at a woman who he will yelling at a woman that he will F her up if she lies to him before he begins to actually assault her. In a second recording, let's look at this here. Let's blow this up some. Okay, in a second recording, R. Kelly could be allegedly heard threatening another victim who is reportedly from Florida for stealing a Rolex watch of his, And let's go and pull up this graphic here. All right. Let's see here, just a second. Okay. So, according to the recording, R. Kelly allegedly said, "You better not ever take from me again, or I will be in Florida and something will happen to you." R. Kelly allegedly said in the audio recording to the report. Now, court documents state the audio of the disgraced singer is from incidents that occurred back in 2008. Prosecutors said they attempted to call the Florida Jane Doe, the woman, the Florida Jane Doe, to testify against R. Kelly, but decided against it after she experienced an emotional breakdown while listening to the triggering tape. Now, court filings from the victim's attorneys note that the Chicago native, R. Kelly, bragged about having, quote unquote, cameras everywhere throughout his studio in the city and in other locations to keep a close eye on his victims. Now, prosecutors' request to play the shocking recordings the prosecutor's request to play the shocking recordings came a day after one R. Kelly background dancer, Jane Doe number 10, identified as Angela, took to the stand and testified that she walked in on R. Kelly performing oral sex on Aaliyah in 1993. We talked about this on the show Monday, I think it was Monday. Now, which would have been the 13th. Now, Angela testified that she also had sex with R. Kelly when she was just 14 or 15 years old. Okay. I want to go to, we're going to try to pull up this clip here from the Black News Channel, also dealing with this coverage. Now, let's see, while we pull this up here. Okay, just a second. Everybody share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in as well. Also, follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. Okay, just give me a second. I'm going to try to pull this up. Now, Angela testified, quote, he asked me to climb on top of him, Angela said on September 13th in court, adding that there were 3 other young women in various states of undress in the room with me. Quote, I paused for a moment. I was a little startled, end quote, she added. All right. Now, we know R. Kelly has denied all charges. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go to this here. Let's try to pull this up. Okay, I want to pull up this clip here from the Black News Channel dealing with an update on the trial, because we skipped this yesterday. Okay, let's look at this here. Let's go to this from Making the Case with Yadit Tawolde. Just a second here. Let's go to this.
Good evening, I'm Yadit Tawolde, and this is Making the Case. We're closing in on 1 full month since R. Kelly's racketeering and sex trafficking trial began. After weeks of testimony by more than 10 alleged victims, a jury spent today watching footage and listening to audio tapes introduced into evidence by the prosecution. Press and members of the public could neither see nor hear the tapes or the jury's reaction to them playing. Here are today's developments from Brooklyn.
Part of the evidence that was recovered from R. Kelly's home and a storage unit he owned included iPads and videos that prosecutors maintain provide both audio and visual proof of how physically and verbally abusive he was towards his girlfriends. And some of those girlfriends have testified about that alleged abuse at trial. The federal courtroom where singer R. Kelly is being tried for sex trafficking and racketeering was relatively quiet today. Not because there was nothing happening, but rather because there was a lot for the jury to see and hear. Audio and video recordings were played in court, at least 2 of them dating back to 2008. Only members of the jury, the attorneys, and the lead investigator who helped find the recordings at Kelly's home in Chicago and a storage unit were allowed to watch and listen. So we can't say exactly what the jury saw or heard, but we do know some of the recordings are graphic and sexually explicit. And R. Kelly is seen in some of the videos along with at least 2 of his accusers, who testified Kelly recorded them in various sexually related scenarios. There's also a recording in which prosecutors say you can hear Kelly berating and threatening one of his accusers after he believed she stole from him. Prosecutors say the recordings illustrate the type of physical and psychological abuse Kelly used to exert and maintain control over the women and girls he was engaged in sexual relationships with. Multiple female and male accusers testified that Kelly was controlling, abusive, and sexually aroused by subjecting his girlfriends to doing humiliating things, like having sex with his friends in front of him. And sometimes he would do it as a form of punishment when they disobeyed his orders. Kelly denies all claims against him and has pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors had planned to call a woman they identify as Jane Doe 20 to testify, but they say that she had an anxiety attack and broke down crying after hearing some of the recordings, so they decided it would be best to not have her testify because it was too emotionally difficult. Meanwhile, it's expected prosecutors will wrap up their case by the end of the week, and R. Kelly's defense team may be presenting its case before the jury as early as Monday. Meanwhile, court is in recess until Friday morning. In New York, I'm Dre Clark for Making the Case.
The prosecution's case is winding down, and the defense should be plotting a strategy as they expect to start their case in chief sometime next week. All right, joining us tonight to offer insight into this trial is civil rights lawyer and president of the Illinois Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, Tony Thetford. Tony, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so you have a unique perspective here because you practice in Chicago and you worked closely with the attorneys who represented R. Kelly in his 2008 trial. What's it like watching this all unfold again?
Deja vu all over again. The charges that Mr. Kelly is defending at this point far outweigh the nature of the charges here in 2008 that were tried. I worked along with an attorney, Sam Adams Jr., who was the principal attorney on that case. I was not involved in the defense of Mr. Kelly back in 2008, to be clear. But you know, the fury that surrounded that, the excitement that surrounded that, it was the trial of the year here in Chicago. And to be in this position again where not only are we there, but frankly 10 times in terms of the media focus and the potential consequences to Mr. Kelly. So it's not a good place to be in again, I guess I would say, in terms of reliving a lot of the trauma from our standpoint for a case that was so difficult to defend and deal with. On the other hand, one of the things that's interesting is that I believed that we would never see this again. I believed that when Mr. Kelly was successful in his first case, that would have been, at least for him, warning enough to never, fool around in those areas again, to put himself in that position. But unfortunately, here he is.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk about today's events in court in a moment. But first, I'd like to get your take on the prosecution's case in chief and the defense's efforts to discredit Kelly's accusers. I mean, we're nearly 1 month into this trial. So what's your assessment on how both sides are doing?
Well, I think it's very difficult for the defense. The prosecution has, and you're an attorney, so you know what I mean, has everything in this case in terms of the bulk of the case, the number of witnesses, emotions on their side. You have a defendant who is infamous. It would be difficult to impanel a jury that had never heard of Robert Kelly or had not heard in some part about the prior prosecution and what his reputation has been for the last 20 years, essentially. So it's very, very difficult for the defense to mount what I believe would be a strong defense with the ability to refute each one of the allegations or to challenge each one of the witnesses who's testified in this case. I know that there's more to come. I know that there was one of the witnesses chose not to testify today because she was emotionally overcome. But I imagine that they will call that witness probably Friday since they're down until then. So it's a very difficult case for the defense. With very limited, frankly, defenses to a case like this, with this number of allegations and this number of witnesses over such a large period of time, which is extremely difficult.
Now, the prosecution was expected to wrap its case on Monday, but they're still presenting evidence. Jurors were originally told that this entire trial would take about a month. What impact could a longer trial have on jurors and to both sides?
Well, as a defense attorney, it is difficult when a prediction about the length of a trial is made Sometimes we fear as defense lawyers that any extension of that trial is held against the defendant. And sometimes I'm sure that could be the case. I think that reasonably, though, the trials that we've been conducting, and I say we and the criminal justice community have conducted since the beginning of the pandemic, have been limited. They've been slower because of COVID protections. They've been disjointed in a way because of how we have to set up courtrooms now in order to attempt to socially distance people. So I think that the court's prediction about how long it would take is a bit unfair in that there are these other factors that don't typically happen in a trial that extend the case. But time is not on the side of R. Kelly and his defense team, in that the longer this case goes on, as you indicated, the worse it seems to get because of the accumulation of sympathetic witnesses and the descriptions of these things that they claim happened to them and the kind of vivid detail that they've given to substantiate that. And now today, we have videos and audio tapes that sort of bolster or support, again, many of those claims.
Well, Tony, speaking of video and audio, after weeks of emotional testimony today, jurors heard from Kelly by way of that audio and video. They heard Kelly allegedly berating and threatening one of his accusers after claiming she stole from him. Talk about the significant impact of video and audio for a jury.
Well, the defense has the option of not calling R. Kelly to testify in this case. My guess is that he would not testify. In light of that, it's almost on some level unfair, because it's a trial strategy. Often when you want to keep your client off the stand, or the defendant does not choose to testify. But hearing his words unattached to his face, as it were, is actually creepy on some level, especially when you've had a trial that essentially has the substance of this case. So I don't think that it's good, first of all, to even hear his voice. Second of all, it's framed in this limited sort of, look, I told you he was a mean guy sort of thing, where they're only playing snippets of what he might have said or what he did say, of course, in those circumstances where he was being recorded. So it's, as a defense attorney, I would certainly argue that those statements may or may not have been taken out of context, and then try to frame the context in which those statements were made. However, that is difficult to do unless you put R. Kelly on the witness stand. And so they're kind of in a catch-22, frankly, where they may be forced to call him to refute what we've heard in those video and audio. So it's going to be interesting as to how they intend to proceed with that really salacious evidence coming in today.
All right, we're going to pause it there. We'll share the rest of this clip on tomorrow's show. This was from Making the Case with Yodit Tawalde, Black News Channel, September 15, 2021. R. Kelly trial revealed graphic and sexually explicit recordings today. The defense attorney that you heard her talk to, Tony Thetford, Thedford, civil rights lawyer and president of the Illinois Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. Okay. Before we get out of here, very quickly, check out the website of the official website of World Afro Day. It's worldafroday.com, worldafroday.com. And let me pull this up here. We talked about World Afro Day earlier in the show. And Michelle DeLeon, founder of World Afro Day, they have a statement around the homepage of the website. It says World Afro Day is a global day of change, education, and celebration of Afro hair. Endorsed by the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, we work with families, schools, and authorities to tackle discrimination against Afro hair. We carry out research, create events, and produce resources to empower people with Afro hair and raise awareness in wider society. Raise awareness in wider society. Okay. And that is from Michelle De Leon, founder of World Afro Day. So you can visit their website, worldafroday.com. They have a lot of information there. Worldafroday.com. Once again, September 15th is World Afro Day. Well, September 15th. And let me see something here. Let me see if they have a statement about latest news article. See what they have on here. It's 2020, 2021. Okay. On the homepage of the website, they should have the date of World Afro Day. The moment came on the 15th September 2016. Okay. All right. So check this out. September 15, 2016, World Afro Day. All right, we have to get out of here. If you'd like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN Show, paypal.me / the AHN Show. If you do it through Cash App, this is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN Show, SHOW. And when you go to it, it'll show my picture there, and it'll say Michael. This is our official Cash App tag, $ the AHN Show. These other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. That's not me. All right. Remember, right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And register for the 10-week online course I teach on Saturdays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement, 1865 to 1968. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.
Black on Purpose Television Network. Yes, Black on Purpose Television Network. All black, all positive, all the time. The largest black-owned streaming television network in the world. Bringing our people together worldwide. Controlling our messages, our stories, our way. Black TV the way it should be. Black music, Black history, and more. 30+ channels, thousands of shows. Black on Purpose Television Network. Subscribe now.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
Gain knowledge in minutes from insightful summaries of progressive and socially conscious books. Blacklisted gives you access to curated content that'll satisfy your curiosity to learn and understand different perspectives. Empower yourself through inspirational and actionable ideas. It's easy to read or listen to on the go. Blacklisted. Empower yourself. Start your free trial today.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting, LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP,